Hello pianists! Today I'm going to teach you how to play one of the easiest piano pieces by master composer Franz Schubert, his Ecossaise in G major, opus 18, number 4. Stay tuned after the performance as I'll teach you how to play this piece with me using my Bronson Musical Learning Pyramid. We'll talk through those techniques of forearm rotation and arm weight, that way you can play it fast and with ease and with beautiful expression. Also teach you some romantic performance practices. When to use the damper pedal. You'll have some video of when I use the pedal to add that resonance. Also coach you on how to use some rubato. These are all some tendencies that you can also transfer to other master composers like Chopin and Beethoven. This beautiful Schubert Ecossaise is available for you to play in public domain. It's great for a late beginner to maybe early intermediate student. My students also learn it out of Alfred's Group Piano for Adults Book 1. You can also find it in an Introduction to Schubert on page 16. I'll leave links for both of those books if you'd like to purchase them in my description. When most people think about Schubert, they remember him for his beautiful melodies and his Lieder, which is the German word for his art songs. But he actually wrote over 400 dance pieces for the piano. This Ecossaise is a quick dance for couples, always in 2/4, and Chopin and Beethoven also wrote these Ecossaises. So keep in mind these strategies you learn here, you can transfer to their pieces as well. A fun fact is this Ecossaise may have actually debuted at a gathering of Schubert and his friends, fondly called a Schubertide. These were evening parties where Schubert would play his latest compositions, and you would often find him at the piano improvising these dance pieces that he would later pin down for his friends to dance to and to sing along with. It's a terrific piece for you to learn some essential piano skills you can transfer to your other favorite pieces. The ability to voice, to add articulations that's fueled by technique, Roman numeral analysis to inform your dynamics as well. So let's get started. Within the rhythm category of our Bronson Musical Learning Pyramid, we'll look at the time signature first. It's 2/4, which is always the time signature for an Ecossaise, which is a contra dance. It was a couple dance that was always quick and lively with dramatic dynamics. So it's pretty simple rhythms. You can tap along with me as I demo a little bit again. You can also tap it hand separate with that earlier demonstration. So the counts are 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and so on. Careful at measure 8, I'm going to come into it at 7, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and use those rests to lift up because you're actually going to need those spots to move your hands, so train in that precise timing. For the left hand rhythm, it's nice and simple. It's half notes and quarter notes all the way through, so you could just even tap that along with me, and you're going to make sure that you lift on the and beat before the next measure. The reason being is there's repeated G's through the first line. The second line, there's repeated D's. So on the pianos, you need to make sure that when you play, you lift up so those hammers can then restrike. So you'll see those commas on the score to lift. 1 and 2, lift. 1 and 2, lift. 1, lift. 2, lift. 1, 2, lift. So on. So train that within the left hand. You can tap it before you're ready to play it. And then I would practice tapping that hands together before you go to learning the notes with me. All right, pianists, let's next look at our key signature within our note reading category of our pyramid. I see 1 sharp, friendly reminder on these key signatures. ID that last sharp, which is just the 1, go up 1/2 step, and this could be G major or its relative minor of E minor. How to find out? You look at the first and the last measure. Typically, the left hand has a G chord to begin and end. That would confirm I'm in G major. I suggest you warm up on a scale, whatever you feel comfortable, 1 octave or maybe even into 4 octaves. Even your primary chords, 1, 4, 1, 5, 7, 1. Because Schubert uses quite a few of those chords. You can check out some other videos to know how to play those skills along with me. All right, let's jump into the note reading for the right hand to begin. So this is a great piece for ledger lines, those lines that extend the staff up and down. I look at the very top note of your treble clef to get you there. So the top line of the treble clef is an F5. Then I see I go up a 4th. I'm going to start on a B5, that high note. The highest note is at measure 7, a D6. Then you'll get into an octave after that. Once you have your notes identified, I would then read by intervals. So you start with that B5, steps down, repeat, steps down, repeat, thirds, half step to C sharp. This is a scale. We have an octave up a fourths. So take your time. You might even want to identify or color code your octaves, and then you have some sixths and some fourths. For a beginning pianist, an essential skill is to develop a sense of intervals. So you're probably pretty good at 5-finger scales by now, but these have quick extensions of your hand, so you have to trust that octave. I would just block that octave and then go back and forth with that forearm rotation. I'll show you more later. And then up a fourth, just to get that position really comfortable. That way when you have to play it in the scale, it's there. Measure 9, let's block these intervals. I have 2 octaves in a row with 5 and 1. Measure 10 is a 6 with 4 and 1. There's an additional finger I gave you here for the 4th with 2, 1. Measure 11 is the same pattern, octave on A's, F sharp, remember that, 6th, and then a 4th. Let me give you a little theory term here. Whenever you have the same intervallic pattern, it moves up or down by a step. That's called a sequence. Bach loves to use sequences even within his dances. So block that through from 9 through 12. And then notice 13 to the end is an exact repetition of 5 through 8. So you can take some time, get the right hand note reading comfortable with your landmark notes and intervals. All right, let's next look at the left-hand note reading. I see that I have that chord we talked about earlier with our key identification. I start with the left hand, the lowest note is a G3. So we're just gonna jump in and label these lead sheet, which are the chord symbols. So we have a G major chord. Next measure, the top 2 notes move up, which is a C major over G, second inversion, back to G. Look ahead, measure 5. I have a D3 as my lowest note, up a 3rd, up a 5th. Notice the C natural, this is a D7. Down to G over D, back to D7. And I wrote you in some fingering at measure 8 to help you remember to go to a 2-1 there. Those are all diatonic chords, meaning Schubert is using chords within the key, those primary chords we talked about earlier. Okay, grab out your pencils. At measure 9, circle that where we normally see the bass clef is a treble clef. So this is actually a D sharp 4 above middle C. It's a very dissonant chord we'll use for our dynamics in a moment. So you have a tritone or diminished 5th, into 2-4 on E minor chord, C sharp and G, into D and F sharp, which is that 3rd, that sequence. And then 13, you gotta move down early, is the same as 5 through 8. So you can go through just the left hand and practice just chord changes. Move it up quick. Remember I said use that rest to move. Measure 11, 12, down. So it might kind of look simple and as I played it, but there's a lot of quick moves that you have to move early during those rests and even take time out of the end of a measure to get your hand in position. Before you go on to the fun articulations and dynamics, you're going to want to work hands separate to get the notes comfortable, and then you could start playing right hand and tap the left hand so you combine that lifting skill. 1 and 2 lift, 1 and 2 lift, short, short, 1 lift. Left hand only lifts. Only left hand lifts, and then they both move. So it's great for that hand independence where the right hand's going to stay connected and smooth while the left hand is lifting. You could do the same thing. You could play the left hand and even tap that right hand along. So get that steady practice with metronome, nice and slow. Even tap your foot before you go into articulations. Okay, into articulations, we're gonna have to use some technique, and let's start thinking more imaginative. This is a dance, perhaps Schubert and his friends. So the accents would be a heavier weight down, like they're taking a heavier step. So I'm gonna use my arm weights. Arm weight. Here's the hops, finger hops up as well. Come down. Here's smooth steps. Scoop under. Octaves, rotation, right, left, right, left. Measure 9 through 12 is all forearm rotation. I start with the higher note, so I move to the right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. You have that black key, you have to go in towards the fall board more. Measure 13, scoops under. Rotation. That's why it's essential to block those intervals, because when you rotate, yes, your hand does come out of position, but it's more of a healthy, easy way to play, and it'll give you more expression in that as well. So block them first so you can trust your hand can come back down to that interval position. All right, next into dynamics, let's talk about which hand to voice louder. You probably have been hearing that right hand is singing out, but let me give you a chord demonstration, what it would sound like if you approach this piece and you play both hands equally. I'm just gonna give you measures 1 through 8. Not very pleasant to my ears. I want to hear that that right hand sings out, the left hand is like the orchestral background, or that maybe Schubert is doing a little jump waltz pattern down there. It's nice and light. The way you practice that is silent play. Maybe you've seen me do this before. I'm going to play the right hand nice and bold with our arm weight. The left hand's just going to simply silently tap on top of the keys. Once you can get that control of the left hand, you pick your tempo where you can keep it soft. The left hand's going to stay very close to the keys. So notice I have nice tall fingers. I don't have my arm weight down. That will make it louder, just nice and tall. Very song-like that way. That is still Schubert's nature, that we would let that right hand sing out beautifully. So practice your silent play before we're ready to go on to our next level of dynamics. All right, so the Ecossaise style was known for being very dramatic with large fortissimos and even pianissimos close together. So at measure 5 and 13, I would back that off quite softly. That way you can grow to those phrase goals at measure 7. So let me use that term phrase goal and explain it a little bit. You'll start to see some arrows in a moment on my score. That indicates the richest or loudest point of the phrase, hence the goal. And not all of these goals will be equal. This is where we need to go back and look at our chords and Roman numeral analysis to inform it. So this is a romantic performance practice that they really started back in the classical era. Thinking about one chords being calmer, a little softer. As we start to go away from home, the 4 is richer. There's a goal, light on the 1. So not all accents are equally loud. Let me play that a little faster. Okay, and then looking at 5 through 8, I'm going to go to the 5-7 at measure 7. It's the highest pitches. That's a more dissonant harmony. So that's the main goal of 1 through 8. Here's 5, sneak in. Goal. And then taper it back softer to the 1. Okay, this is where Schubert uses some clever harmonies. So measure 9, remember the left hand is in double treble clef along with the right hand. This was a B7 from earlier lead sheet symbols. This is actually 5, 6, 5 of 6. Let me just take a quick moment to explain that. Composers like to add more color and interest to their pieces, so they started borrowing chords from other keys. Look at measure 10, then we'll come back. This is an E minor chord, which is the 6th chord in the key of G, which is also the relative minor, so he likes that minor color. He's going to borrow the dominant from E minor. He does the same thing in the next 2 measures. We're going to do an A7, which moves to a D, 13. So you hear 3 instances of a dominant 7 going back to like a 1 sound. So measure 9 is the most dissonant chord. We're going to play that as the main goal. Notice that Schubert also puts the FZ, which is a forzato marking. So we're going to stretch the timing. It's a very dramatic, loud moment. Go to the 5-7. You play that all the way through. And you might have even noticed on my first demo, there's repeats. The first time I like to play a little less intense, the second time amplify it, make it more dramatic. 4, go to the 5-7, stretch. And a little polka ritardando would be appropriate at the end of really any dance as the dancers come to a close. Let's move into style and mood. So I'm going to give you a little romantic performance practice. You might have caught it with your ears. To bring out those phrase goals, I'm going to use pedal. If you look at romantic pieces, Schubert, Chopin, Schumann, often you see 0 pedal. Doesn't mean you don't use pedal. At this time, it was just standard, the performance practice, that pianists would use pedal. Where I'm going to tastefully add it is with those phrase goals. So you can watch my foot at those 4 chords and the 5-7. I'm going to do a little pedal touch to open up the harp and give it some resonance. Another performance practice of the Romantic era was the sense of rubato, which from the Italian literally means robbed. So we push and pull from that tempo. I still feel a very steady pulse, but I have liberty to stretch at those phrase goals. The most stretching you probably heard was at measure 9. You can have a sense of pushing a little bit to the goals and then stretch once you get there. So here's the 1. A little bit of that tasteful ring. Lastly, the Romantic era was known for its little character pieces. Brahms wrote character pieces, so did Schumann. So think about some adjectives to describe this piece so that way you communicate the style. It's very lively, it's fun. Think about the dancing atmosphere of the Schubertites. Lastly, bring out a lively tempo. You can pick your tempo range, but maybe the quarter at 140 to even 180. But don't miss that technique, only as fast as you can add your technique. So you can do those octave extensions, you can voice your melody, you can use your arm weight for your accents. So enjoy learning this masterful little piece by Schubert. Start it here. Transfer these skills to more advanced pieces by Schubert you can find in that book I'd mentioned. You can transfer these dance ideas to Beethoven and Chopin, even some of these ideas back to Bach as well. So use a systematic approach that I've given you to learning your own favorite pieces and enjoy the journey.